John Jay and Dred Scott versus Sandford by Michel and Ramon Lavares. Born on December 23, 1745 in New York City, John Jay was raised by his mother and father, Mary Van Cortlandt and Peter Jay. He's the father of 3 kids and was married to Sarah Livingston Jay. John Jay went to King's College, which is now Columbia University. He graduated in 1760 from Columbia and started to invest his time into politics. Jay is known as the key negotiator at the Treaty of Paris, which ended the American Revolutionary War and portrayed the independence of the United States. He then was announced as the first Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court. Jay favored a strong union and contributed 5 essays to the Federalist Papers in support of the new Constitution. Jay was initially offered the position as Secretary of State, but he declined his first offer. He accepted a second offer by President George Washington and was nominated as the first Chief Justice of the United States. The Senate confirmed the appointment on September 26 in 1789. John Jay was an American statesman, diplomat, and is one of the founding fathers of the United States. Jay was also a negotiator, a signee of the Treaty of Paris, the second governor of New York, and the first Chief of Justice of the United States. He led the U.S. foreign policy and was an important leader of the Federalist Party after the ratification of the United States Constitution in 1788. One of Jay's court cases as Chief of Justice was Van Stophorse versus Maryland in 1791. This Supreme Court case was about the Van Stophorse brothers who gave money to the state of Maryland as a loan during the Revolutionary War. The state of Maryland then refused to pay back the debt that they owed to the Van Stophorse brothers in accordance with their terms. Soon after, both parties finally came to a neutrality, and the Supreme Court decided. John Jay died on May 17, 1829, in Bedford, New York. Deuces.
Dred Scott versus Sandford. The people involved in the Supreme Court case are Dr. John Emerson, a slave Dred Scott, John Emerson's wife, Eliza Sandford, and her brother, John Sandford. The case was argued February 11 to 18, 1856, and was decided March 6, 1857. The case originated in St. Louis, Missouri. In the beginning of this case, U.S. Army surgeon Dr. John Emerson purchased slave Dred Scott. Shortly after this purchase, Emerson moved to Wisconsin Territory, where slavery was banned due to the Missouri Compromise. Then in 1840, Emerson, Scott, and Scott's family moved to Louisiana and then eventually to St. Louis, Missouri. Emerson eventually passed away in 1843, leaving the Scott family to Eliza Irene Sandford, who was Emerson's wife. Under Eliza's responsibility, Dred Scott attempted to purchase his freedom from her, in which she responded in refusal. Scott then decided to sue her in state court, claiming that he and his family were legally free since they lived within a territory where slavery had been banned. Finally, in 1850, the state court declared Scott free, but his wages had been withheld pending the resolution of his case. While this was occurring, Mrs. Emerson remarried, leaving the Scotts as the responsibility of her brother John Sandford. Mr. Sandford, unwilling to pay back the wages owed to Scott, appealed the decision to the Missouri Supreme Court. The court overturned the lower court's decision, ruling in favor of Sandford. In response, Scott tried to file another lawsuit in a federal court, claiming damages for physical abuse. But Scott was not able to sue in federal court because he was considered a slave under Missouri law. Scott then appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. The U.S. Supreme Court then reviewed the case in 1856. The court said that although Scott was a citizen of a free state, he was not necessarily a U.S. citizen. Although states were allowed to create their own rules for citizenship, the Constitution gave Congress authority to define the rules of national citizenship. The court stated that he would still not qualify as an American citizen because he was black. The court asserted that U.S. citizens are only those who were members of the political community at the time of the Constitution's creation, including their descendants. Finally, the court argued that Scott could not be free because Congress did not have the power to ban slavery in U.S. territories. Slaves were seen as property, and the Fifth Amendment prevented Congress from taking property away without just compensation. In 1857, the Supreme Court ruled a 7-2 decision in Sandford's favor. This decision created tensions between the North and South. Anti-slavery forces were outraged by the decision. After the Civil War, the states ratified the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. They overturned the Dred Scott decision. Today, anyone born or naturalized in the United States are considered American citizens and are allowed to file suit in federal court. Thank you.